Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of Barnard College and Women in Hollywood, it is my honor to welcome you to the 11th Annual Athena Film Festival. This festival is dedicated to celebrating the stories of bold, courageous women leaders and the filmmakers who bring this story to life. So thank you so much for joining us. My name is Corey Luco, and I am a programmer and operations assistant here at the festival. I would like to mention that, of course, this year's festival could not happen without the support of our dedicated sponsors. So please take this moment and with me in thanking the Artemis Rising Foundation, which is our founding sponsor, and its CEO and founder, Regina K. Scully, whose visionary leadership makes our work possible. Also, a special thank you to our premier level sponsor, the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, which shares our commitment to showcasing the stories of women in science and putting them on screen. To all of our sponsors, whose names you will see at the beginning of each film and event, thank you for your commitment to challenging culture to be more inclusive and for inspiring our audiences in the process. This past year has obviously been a wake-up call in many ways. And this year, when we were thinking about how we wanted to move our programming online, we realized that we really needed to dig deeper in order to really get into what's been going on in the past 12 months. So in response to that, we created our 8 program areas that react and respond to this past year. And so this program area is our discovery program. So now we invite you to fall in love with new voices. As we all know, it's been a very difficult year for filmmakers with theater closures and production halts. But as you see here, emergent filmmakers are resilient and the future of the industry is bright. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'm excited to talk about your movies. So we're just going to quick go around and everyone's going to say their name, their film, and what they did on the film. And then we'll get started. Gabby, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Gabby Norland, and I was the director of Jamie, the director of photography on Jamie, which was directed by Esme Creed-Miles.
Wonderful. Sophie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophie Luo. I am the director, producer, and editor of Closing Anissa.
Wonderful. Martinique?
Hi, everyone. My name is Martinique Watson. I was the director, producer, and I starred in Naps.
Beautiful. And Regina?
Hi, my name is Regina Hoyles. My film is Adulam, and I am the writer, director, producer, and I play Rashida in Adulam.
Wonderful. I love this. One of my favorite things about talking to emerging filmmakers is like when you're making those movies, you're doing so many different things, right? And so it's bringing that all together. So first off, I want to start with a question for everyone to sort of tell us a little bit of the story of how you came to your project, why you wanted to tell this story, and then Gabby, how you got involved with this story with Jamie. So Gabby, if you want to start us off.
Yeah. So I'd worked with the production company Pretty Bird, and particularly with the producers, executive producer Juliet Lath, and she called me for a project with Esme. And because Esme was directing and also starring in it, as some of you ladies know, we had a lot of prep and we talked a lot about the look of the film. And I mean, it was really incredible because Esme really managed to keep on top of everything while still acting. But I felt like the prep was really helpful because she'd drawn very detailed storyboards. And so we knew what every shot was and what film it was referencing. And the thought behind the film was actually really amazing. So it was very clear to me what we were going to shoot, how we were going to cover each scene. So yeah, it was. I got involved through the production company, and we did a lot of prep. And yeah, I think it paid off for this because the shoot ran really well for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Sophie.
So my interest in getting involved in this or starting this project off, I guess, was a convergence of two things. At the time that I started working on it, I was working at a small production company, and we were making a lot of documentary style content, but for certain clients, and I felt there were always creative restrictions on the stories we could tell, and so I wanted to see if I could find a story that would be close to my own heart. And around the same time, my producer on the project had brought me to dinner at this restaurant called Anissa in the West Village of New York City, which was an amazing restaurant. And I was familiar with the chef. Her name is Anita Lowe, and she is like one of the best to ever do it. She is just a really, really important figure, I think, in Chinese American representation in the restaurant industry. And I had seen her on shows like Chopped and Iron Chef, like taking down all of these macho men. And so I was really interested in her. And at the time we had that dinner, I found out that her restaurant was actually going to be closing down in about 6 months from then. And I thought that was really interesting. Living in New York City, and I think many people who live in cities, am very familiar with the feeling of walking past a street corner and seeing a place you loved suddenly be gone and be replaced by something else. And I thought this would be a really interesting time to just see a little bit behind that process and capture her. So I cold pitched the restaurant, and fortunately Chef Lowe got back to me and said, sure, if you want to film with me during this process, it won't be very glamorous, but go ahead, I guess, if you're interested in that. And I took the chance and ran with it. So that's how it got started.
Incredible. Martinique?
How I came to start with this project, I also wrote it. I was just coming out of a 2-year Meisner program. I was trained to be an actor. And it was kind of the situation where I was getting very frustrated because when you're new, you don't have anything on your resume and no one's kind of interested in putting you for work because what can we go off of? And my co-director, Tyreek Smith, was like, well, why don't you write something? Why don't you create your own work? And at first I was like, no, never. And eventually, out of couple of months not getting work, I just said, okay, fine, I'll sit down, I'll write work. And I wrote something that was kind of close to me and something understandable of things that I've gone through, going through the big chop and having to transition my hair from relaxed to natural in the 2000s. So it was a little different.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Unfortunately, for people starting out and also for, women and folks of color, like you have to sometimes write your own stuff. But obviously I think it very much paid off for you because I think it's a fantastic story. So yes. I'm glad you sat down to write it. And then Regina, how about you?
Yeah, for me, honestly, it's wild that you say think back to the beginning because the pandemic truly made me completely lose any sense of time. Yeah. So I'm having to jump back out. But I want to say it definitely started with just my love for two things, sci-fi and Black people, honestly, truly. And I also, similar to Martinique, I'm very adamant about not being dependent on everybody else's yes and continuing to say yes to myself on top of saying yes to those around me who I see are just so talented and putting that together. And, I was in New York at the time. I had a pastor who was preaching a sermon and he said the word adulam. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm supposed to do something with this? And I came to find out that the word means to be hidden in plain sight. And so something came to mind about what would it be like to have this young Black woman, venture out into the world, having everyone thinking she's one thing when she's completely different. And just the idea of someone earning someone's trust, our community's trust at that, and then only for that to be totally shattered. And it really is an exploration of what safe spaces are for Black people and how we create those safe spaces in locations, in other people, and what forces come against us to just always destroy them, politicize, police them, and just how people to profit off of our joy and our being. So that's really where that came from for the most part.
Yeah. No, it's very powerful. And we have 3 films here that had performer directors, which I think is really, really interesting. And so we heard Gabby talk a little bit about that prep process with Esme, but Martinique and Regina, I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience on set being performer directors and how that felt.
Yeah. Martinique?
Yeah, so this was the first time that I've directed a film ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't know what I was getting myself into and how hectic it can be.
Yeah.
Having to make sure everything's set, this is prepared. And then mine was particularly low budget. So having to make sure that my actors are fed, making sure that everyone's here on time. Anything can happen on the day of the set, anything. So somebody being 3 hours late, having to be okay with that. What can we shoot for the time that someone's not here? And then also, hey, you have to make sure you remember your lines.
Yeah.
And actually be in the same space that you're supposed to be, because this is where we are in the script. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to crumble down. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, balancing all and juggling all of those things, especially on a low budget film for sure. Regina, how did it feel for you? Was it kind of similar?
Going back, similarly to Martinique, my first big undertaking was a web series I created called Naps, literally, and I wore several other hats like in that project. But I will say for that one, I had a co-EP, I had a couple other directors, and I just really did feel supported. But there was definitely a difference in making it into a short film. And that, I don't know, I was just very adamant about not losing like the ability to act because of everything else I was doing. So I find with each project I take on, I'm taking on less and less roles now. And so for this one, I will say like having an incredible first AD I needed that. Like my guy Taylor, every time I would do anything that was even remotely similar to a PA activity, he was like, why don't we let someone else handle that? Like, I had people like release me in that way. But I will say I learned this about me. Like as a performer, I absolutely love when I can immerse myself totally in a character, like really in that world. So I do not think I will direct and act again. It was very fun and very rewarding for me. But like with each project, I'm learning more about myself, like as a person and as an artist. And I do recognize that, you know, like directing, that's a craft in itself. And I just really feel like if I'm going to direct something, it's because I've invested a lot of time in studying that craft. But I felt like I was supported, but it's just not something I see myself doing soon anymore. But I really appreciated my team more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite parts about filmmaking is you cannot do it alone.
No.
And so it really brings a lot together, wonderful collaboration. So with that, I wanted to turn to Gabby, who had, who's the director of photography on Jamie, which is it's really a beautifully shot film. And I know you talked a lot about the prep, but I was wondering how you and Esme sort of came to the visual palette for the film, just because, you know, you are taking on such a heavy topic. And I think it's done so well and with so much empathy and care. So I was wondering a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was written very much from Esme's personal experience. And visually, we had quite specific references. So we had Good Time by the Safdie brothers, because all those very close, intimate, close. I know a lot of people kind of reference that.
Yeah.
And the colour, the kind of greenish vibes. And there's the scene where she's at the computer, which is from Morven Caller, which is an early Lynn Ramsey film. Right. Which actually Esme's mother, Samantha Morton, is the star of.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite interesting to shoot Esme's beautiful face and, you know, look at this shot of Sam's beautiful face when she was a similar age.
Right.
And to kind of look at the lighting in certain shots. And we really did. We looked at certain bits of lighting and thought about how it would work. And we were lucky because bathroom scenes are normally very difficult because bathrooms are small, but we actually had a reasonable sized bathroom and the colors in it are really beautiful. So that gave us that always helps, you know, built-in production design, or if you find a location that's got the colors, that is always a transformatory thing for the lighting. So in a way, production design and lighting always go so hand in hand. But
of course.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Sophie, so shifting over a little bit, because you are the nonfiction filmmaker in the bunch here. the connection to Chef Anita in the film is incredible. And she is just, I mean, she's such an incredible person and subject. And I felt like I learned so much about an industry that, you know, I only see from one side. So I would love to sort of hear a little bit about, you know, what it was like being on set and that relationship between, you know, you and the camera and her and how that all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, that's so great to hear. And I really feel like I can't take any credit for that. It's Chef Lo's generosity. You know, she was incredibly warm. And, you know, as a first-time filmmaker, when I met with her to pitch her on the idea, she was like, okay, you know, and what have you made? And I showed her some things I had done for my day job, but, you know, I couldn't say it was truly reflective of my own, you know, creative sensibilities. But
Right.
she was just incredibly open and upfront from the start. I think one thing that helped is that I did my research. We share an alma mater. We both grew up in the Midwest. We have like some points of commonality that I knew from her background, and just being Chinese American and growing up in the Midwest and going to the same college, like those are just kind of life touch points that I wanted to talk to her about. And I was really nerdy and earnest, and maybe that helped because I was not trying to be cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, as far as the rest, I mean, I think also I have to chalk it up to the incredible instincts of the people I worked with. My collaborators were also people I had met through my day job, working on mainly corporate sets, and we had just, you know, formed a great connection. And so when I had this idea to do a passion project, they were all really receptive and brought their killer instincts to my, you know, general ideas of where I wanted it to go. So kind of all of that collaboration and, you know, just earnestness, I think really helped set the tone for what this was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I said, it was really wonderful to see a story about, you know, someone shutting something down, you know, and it not because it was a failure, because it wasn't working, or because, you know, the food wasn't amazing, but just because it was, you know, 100% of her life. You know, it was just so much to keep it open. So I love talking to, you know, new filmmakers, and although all of you have done really incredible things, so it feels weird to keep saying that, but about, you know, why you wanted to, what brought you to telling stories, and then from there, what brought you to specifically film and this medium. So if someone wants to pick up on that.
For me, well,
yeah, what's up, Gabby?
Okay. For me, I've got a really visual mind. I've always loved reading. I love stories, and then I've always pictured them, but I can't really draw or paint. So the idea of, you know, actors coming and lighting it and creating the visual realization of this amazing story, to me, it's an absolute dream. Like when I discovered that being a cinematographer was a job and that maybe I'd be able to achieve that, I was like, yes, that just sounds like a dream. And when I have a great day and I feel like I'm telling a really important story, I feel like, wow, I'm so blessed to be able to do this for a living. So.
Yeah. I love that moment where you hear of something, you're like, oh wait, that's a job. Someone will pay me to do that.
Yes,
that's great.
That moment.
Yeah. Regina, do you want to pick it up?
Yeah, for me, you know, it started very young. I knew very young that I wanted to be in the entertainment industry. At heart, I'm just naturally a storyteller. I'm a very visual person. I think in movie more than anything. Like I feel like my brain is a screen. Like I can literally think of something like cut to and like it'd be an actual moment, like real time. And sometimes it's really no words for me to put into it, but I just feel so connected to characters, for example, and just stories. Like it's a feeling I can't explain. Like I know for a fact, like that's something that I was put here to do. And I was so inspired, even just as a young child growing up and watching like That's So Raven and be like, I can do that. I'm gonna have my own. Like That's So Gina. One day or something like that. And just also being able to craft stories. Young, I would write a lot of like little mini books, but looking back, they were very much like screenplays. Like I love being able to craft worlds and create worlds and allow people to experience worlds they wouldn't otherwise be able to experience through this medium. It's just so like visceral to me and so powerful. So yeah, I've just always felt drawn to it. So yeah.
And specifically, you mentioned your love of sci-fi. So I'm sort of wondering, how you found your way to that like, genre specifically.
New. I would say that's more like, when did that happen? In college, I feel like once I got more on game with sci-fi that felt more grounded, like Black Mirror, because that's definitely the vein that a dueling falls in. I love like alternate realities that could be plausible. Like those I love things that make me think about it for the whole week, like later. Like I just like things like that. And that just really question our humanity and just how the world works. I'm really drawn to those type of brains. Like what is his name? Alec Garland, I think, who made Devs and Ex Machina. I'm always floored. Like I'm just really drawn to stuff like that. So yeah, that's relatively new actually, but yeah.
Very cool. And Martinique and Sophie, about your
I was very interested in entertainment just as well as Regina at a young age. I just didn't know exactly where I fit in. And then for some reason, one of my friends in high school kind of said, come do this thing with me. I want to try a club, but I'm afraid to do it by myself. And it was the speech and debate team, also known as forensics. And I feel like it's a weird medium. Not many people know about it. It's like, if you think of the great debaters, that's the best thing I can tell you about it. But there's a whole nother medium called speech, where you get to perform and you get dramatic interpretation, oral interpretation. I was doing that throughout most of my high school career, and I got so far and realized how much I loved performing. Mm-hmm. And then once I got to get older and I started learning about more indie films, I really got engulfed with film, and learning about directors like Janica Bravo really took me. And I love her work. I'm waiting to see Zola that comes out, because it looks amazing.
Amazing. And so it really seems like it came to it from a performer angle, but I mean, this was such a great film. How are you feeling about directing after this?
I really do enjoy directing. It's been so much fun. And I will say I do have somewhat of the issue as well, where I'll see something happening and I was like, whoa, that'd be great in a film. If they can just do this over here, and then in those previous scene, they can do that. And then we can just make that into a quick short film, or we can make it into a series. That's kind of how my brain has been working recently. So seeing so many things and constantly jotting it down and saying, I want to work on this. I want to direct this.
Yeah. And Sophie, what about you?
Wow. I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? I think I definitely agree with the points that everyone else made. Also, I am also a former high school speechy. So
same, me too.
I did the debate team at my school for like a week, and then I was like, I gotta get out of here.
What events were you guys?
Say it.
What events were you guys?
Oh, I started off in oral interpretation, and then I made my way into dramatic interpretation. I did humorous for a bit, but for some reason I couldn't. Yeah, I did HI for a while, and I couldn't find a piece that worked for me. So I just did well with the dramatic.
Same. That was me.
That's so cool. I love that there's that point of connection here. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I love the camaraderie on a film set. I love the language that film gives to understand all corners of the world and all types of people. And honestly, it's just that combination of loving the final product and loving the environment that you get from when you're making it. It's just, I mean, it's too good to be true. So yeah.
And Sophie, did you do some editing on the film as well?
I did. That I think was the biggest mental hurdle for me to overcome. I was quite frankly terrified of editing this because I had not edited something before. I had convinced myself that there was a ton of technical knowledge that was just not for me to overcome. And so I talked to many friends who work as professional editors, you know, begging them to please just edit this film. And they were all just so kind, and they really encouraged me to take the leap myself. They were like, you know, if you can do it, one filmmaker who I consider a mentor said, you know, just rearrange the pieces. They're just puzzle pieces. Just move them around until you figure out the story that makes sense for you. And she broke it down to like that level. And I was like, okay, I can do that. You know, that's what's happening in my brain. And so part of the reason the film took a very long time to complete is really just me taking this opportunity to use it as, you know, self-teaching myself how to think about editing a documentary film like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, editing for a doc, the process is it's I feel like it feels quite different than from a narrative, because you really are sort of taking puzzle pieces and crafting your story from there. But I thought the editing was great, so I'm very glad that you took the time to do that. So that's wonderful. I was wondering if, you know, if there's anything else anybody wants to speak to about their films, or if there are stories from set that you want to talk about, or, you know, what kind of stories you want to make next. Any of those things, I'd love to hear from folks.
I'll say something.
Yeah.
I am very interested in, now after having to experience all of that, making more films. So currently I've been writing 2 films.
Very cool.
It's very grueling. I'm also planning to move. So
yeah,
having to kind of like network and make my own like family out there where I'm planning to move, because a lot of the people that did work on my film were amazing, but they were also people that I knew. And that's one thing that, having to make low budget short films, you kind of have to reach out to your team, reach out as much as you can. And luckily, from being from acting school, I knew many actors. It helped a lot, as well as my DP, who graduated from Brooklyn College. He knew a lot of people that were camera or boom operators or editors or sound mixers. So just reaching out to my team helped. But my goal is to have an all-woman set, all women. So on screen and off screen.
Incredible. Well, I am very excited to see what comes from that. I think that's going to be wonderful. Anyone else?
I can jump in. After spending a long time putting together the pieces for doc editing, I am deciding to try, you know, a film where you actually think about lining up the pieces in advance. So I'm writing a fiction feature, and I'm still very much interested in the themes of Chinese American identity and food, but I'm hoping to take it into the horror genre next.
Very interesting. Yeah, excited. I love the genre work here. It's very cool.
I'll jump in, Gabby, if that's okay. I've been auditioning a lot and really booking work, honestly, that aligns so much with just who I am, what I value as a person, as an artist. So excited for things coming out there. And on the filmmaking end, I've completed 2 pilots in the panorama that I'm really happy about. So I'm definitely hoping to shoot those at some point, post-COVID preferably. I also was a producer on a short film that ran the circuit last year, and it's really just powerful about women coming back to themselves. And so we're going to be turning that into a feature. So I'll be producing that as well. And, you know, again, still pending COVID. We know we're going to make it, but timeline is just still shifting. But yeah, just a lot of a very women empowered, LGBTQ empowered set, and very much inclusive behind and in front of the camera. So really excited. And I'm only wearing that producer hat. As far as I know, until like my mentor is like, Regina, just do this quick roll though. But it's gonna be a really fun time. I'm so looking forward to it.
That's wonderful. I love that. And Gabby, how are you? Do you have any other projects that you're thinking about, or any other stories that you particularly want to tell? Or
yeah, I have some projects that I've recently completed or that are in post that I'm really happy about and looking forward to them. So one of them is again, BBC Films part funded, and the BFI, British Film Institute, funded. And it was the first short film that went ahead after the first British lockdown. And that's called Coconut, and it's about a young black girl growing up in a very white northern town. And it's about how she acts white to try and fit in. And it's a really powerful story. And so I'm looking forward to that hitting the festival circuit. And there's a few other things. There's a documentary film about a singer-songwriter called Connie Dalrymple that was filmed with reference to, there's an American documentary filmmaker called Shirley Clark who made a film called A Portrait of Jason. So it's just a portrait of this lady talking about her life, and you never really come away from that. It's just her in a room talking, but she's a really compelling character. So it's feature length, and it's kind of unusual as a film to do something like that you're just with this character in one room telling her story about her life. But she's so amazing that it kind of seems to work. I don't know if I'm biased, but I found this woman completely compelling. So
very cool.
That was a cool story. Yeah.
Well, I love that, and I've loved being able to talk to y'all more about your journeys and your films, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching all of them. And I'm so glad that you're able to be a part of this festival, because I think each film adds so much. And so thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. It's been great.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.